Hey everybody, I'm Joseph Payton, and welcome back into the WSAZ Now studio. This is our Wednesday stream of WSAZ Sports Plus, which means we're talking college football with Keith Morehouse. There he is joining us up here at the desk. And Keith, at least for the Marshall Thundering Herd, probably a game to forget.
You know, one of the things that you think about in a game like that, Joseph, as they lost in double overtime, game by most accounts they should have won, then you got a week and a half to sit on it. They got a bye week, and they don't play until homecoming coming up a week from Saturday. So they got a lot of self-reflection, and I think I even heard Coach Gibson on the Sunbelt media call earlier on Tuesday talk about they're going to do some self-scouting and really look at what's going on. He said they've got to get that fixed defensively, and he's right. I mean, 51 points, they had 503 yards total offense. I believe I counted that Louisiana scored on 7 straight series.
Wow. So
if you can't stop the other team, you got some issues. Their offense has been really good the last few weeks, and it was good again in Lafayette. Del Rio Wilson, Carlos, the quarterback, was stellar. Floyd Lacey was another outstanding game from him as a playmaker. Michael Allen, 138 yards rushing. I mean, they had plenty of offense and should have, by all rights, put that thing away.
Final score was 54-51. Of course, double overtime puts more points on the board than what there really should have been. But Marshall led this thing 34-17 with 7 minutes left in the third quarter. That's a game that you got to hang on to.
Yeah, and they had a huge play from Paul Hudson, the third defensive lineman, bats the ball up in the air, and well, it was a big man touchdown. You know, you love those. He rumbles down, has a phalanx of blockers alongside, and he scored. And at that point, they're up 17. And you just feel it in your mind that you get one more score, that's the ball game. But then, credit to Michael Desormeaux, their head coach of Louisiana. He brings in the third-string guy. Their starter had been hurt. Second-string guy wasn't all that effective, so they bring in a guy named Lunch Winfield.
Lunch.
And that's Lunch. And, man, did he have lunch, dinner, after game snack. He was a dual threat guy, and they couldn't stop him. And he ran for more than 100 yards and 3 touchdowns, had 2 touchdown passes. His real name is Dwayne, by the way. I looked it up.
Lunch is much better.
Lunch is, I mean, you can have some fun with some merchandise on lunch. But, the fact that either Marshall's inability or the fact that he was just that good, I'm sure it's a combination, but they couldn't get him down. And that was their undoing. And that's something they're going to have to really work on because coming up against ODU when they come in for homecoming, they got a dual threat guy too. So that's a problem with the defense. And to Tony Gibson's credit, he talked about having the week off, and that this is some time to do some work because they have to work on defense.
Yeah, we got a lot of stuff to fix. So I don't know if we can get it all fixed in 2 weeks, but we're going to try. So we got to get this thing right defensively.
So it's not, how sometimes we call them open weeks, off weeks. It's anything but for the Herd, especially that defense. They've got to get that right as they go into conference play. Here's the thing, Joseph. They're not a bad football team. They are 4 points away from being 4-1 right now. The Missouri State game, a 3-point loss at Louisiana, and both those games they lost double-digit leads in the fourth quarter. So it's all right there in front of them. They've got to finish, and they've got to find it out. But one thing I like about Coach Gibson in his post-game news conferences, he doesn't offer up excuses. He's not whining and crying. He puts the blame where it needs to be and says, let's go fix it. So I'm sure they'll be working on that this week.
In terms of excuses, we were talking before we hit record here about the penalties and how it was certainly not in favor of Marshall. You could easily use that as an excuse. Did Coach Gibson weigh in on that at all?
I think he was asked that afterwards. He said, I don't know what the final numbers were, but it was, clearly there were many more penalties on his team than Louisiana. You can't blame it on that because what they call is what they call, and it's very likely Marshall committed 12 penalties. But for another team to just commit 1, that usually doesn't happen in a football game. But you're on the road. You're going to find those kinds of things, and you got to overcome them. And with a 17-point lead, they needed to overcome that. But, yeah, that's a stat you don't see very often in college football.
Certainly not an excuse, but also certainly didn't help the cause for the Herd.
No, they probably could have used a call or two down the road in that one for sure.
Well, I'm sure next week on our college football episode we'll go pretty in-depth on the Marshall Old Dominion game at home. But just your initial thoughts right now coming out of this loss.
Well, I mean, I think they've got still, they're still trying to figure out this team. I saw a lot of flashes of talent on offense again with Lacey and what Carlos Del Rio Wilson was doing, and the running back room has been good. Michael Allen this time, they haven't had Joshawn Barbie; he was banged up, and so this was Allen's show. And I like what Del Rio Wilson's doing as a quarterback. He leads the nation in passing efficiency. He's 51 of 65. For 700 yards or so and 9 touchdowns and no interceptions. So he has emerged as the guy. Now, as a team, you got to be able to score 40 and figure that's enough to win, and that's got to be their emphasis. But I think that they've done some really good things in the early going, and as we said, they could be 4-1, but those losses are losses. You are who your record says you are, and so now they've got to go 2 straight in Huntington against 2 really good teams, Old Dominion and Texas State, and that's going to be a test, but hey, that's what makes college football fun, so we'll see how they answer.
Yeah, I guess if you're looking for a silver lining, it's probably that offense. You're taking care of the football and you're putting up points. That's going to keep you in games and give you plenty of chances to win them, but you also got to keep the other team off the board, so we'll see over the next week and a half if they can shore some things up on that side.
Yeah, and they had a defensive touchdown, as we mentioned, and Boogie Trotter had another interception. So they've done some good things on defense, but these quarterbacks who are able to run a little bit and throw a little bit, that's going to be the bane of their existence, and so they got to shore that up. If they can do that, I think they're offensively, just on the early going, they look to be, pretty daggone good.
Well, an off week for Marshall, and then they'll pack the Joan there because it's been a while. Mm-hmm. October 11th. I'm not sure what time that game starts.
3:30. It's a 3:30 start.
3:30. Mm-hmm. You got it.
Yep.
Well, it wasn't much better of a Saturday up in Morgantown either. Mm-mm. Utah beats WVU 48-14, and Devin Dampier had a career day.
Man, I've watched him 3 games now this season, and he's every bit as good as advertised. We talked about it in one of our earlier shows. Came over from New Mexico with his offensive coordinator, and he's a talent. I watched him play against UCLA, and I would go, who's that guy? And then I found out really quickly who he was. What Utah did really well, and this is what you have to do, it was throwback day at West Virginia, those 1965 jerseys, which are really, really cool looking. They took him out of the game early. Like, it really wasn't a game. And Dampier was he was special back there. He didn't panic. He found his open receivers. And Zach Alley for West Virginia, he's got some issues on that side of the football. They had some really good early season outings on defense in that Pitt game and earlier, but now that defense has been exposed a little bit. Last time out by Jalen Daniels in Kansas, and now by Utah, and they're going to BYU. So they've got to get some things fixed. They still are looking for a quarterback. They mixed in Khalil Wilkins, and Jalen Henderson started. Wasn't really effective, and they brought in Wilkins, and he led them to their touchdown. But that was in the third quarter, kind of when the game was over. So here's the thing. Coach Rodriguez, same situation with Coach Gibson. They had a ton of new players. The problem is college football fans aren't really very patient anymore. With the NIL, everybody says, well, go get yourself some players and trot them out and get your team ready. And so, it's easier said than done. But they've got to get something done quickly. They run into some seriously tough teams now, as they've got BYU, and not that they haven't played tough teams, but the league looks pretty good this year. So they got to find the answer at quarterback, shore things up on defense, find a little bit of a running game. They didn't run it very well against Utah. So there are plenty of things for them to work on, and they've got a short week because they play Friday night in Provo.
Friday night, 10:30 p.m. If people are going to stay up late for that one, I'm sure the Mountaineer fans will. But that's an undefeated, number 23 ranked BYU team right now. They're rolling. They just beat Colorado on the road. They had to kind of get by there. I think it was only a 3-point win, but never easy to win at LaVell Edwards Stadium, especially 10:30 at night, local time for you.
Yeah, I looked at they've only played twice in the whole series, the history of the series, and both were in Morgantown. So West Virginia's never been to Provo, which is a beautiful setting. But it's going to be a different atmosphere that late at night, playing on someone else's home field. And like you said, BYU 4-0. They're favored by like 19 points. Cougars are good, and it's another good team in the Big 12, and so they're going to have to get well quick for sure.
Has Rich Rod given any updates on their injury situation? Last week, that was kind of the flavor of the week. It was like, we don't know who we're going to have. Everybody's banged up. Some guys are questionable. We just don't know. Do we have any kind of substantial updates over there?
Yeah, he had his news conference on Tuesday, but I'm not sure they'll have a real good feeling on it till Thursday or so. But, that has been a huge factor for him, and to his credit, he hasn't used it as an excuse. But when you got that many players out, that begins to affect your depth and who's coming in after, the replacement guys come in. So he had a lot to say about BYU and how good they are, and they expect a test this week.
He's what the coaching profession can really look to as far as a role model for a lot of younger coaches. So, and he's done a great job there. I think they've invested in their program. They've got a passionate fan base like we do, and he's done a really good job. They've been, I think, the last couple of years they've been really good.
So it's an early week for West Virginia. They'll travel out there and get out there on Thursday, and then play some football Friday night in Provo, Utah. That's a great atmosphere.
Yeah. Well, Ohio State was just on the West Coast, a little further than Provo, Utah, but they were in Seattle, beat Washington 24-6. It was a slow start for the Ohio State offense. Looked like first possession of the game they're going to go bang one home and go up 7-0, and end up not getting it on a 4th and goal situation. So Ohio State comes out of there and wins 24-6, but they trailed 3-0 for the majority of the first half.
They that's been a theme of teams from the Big Ten who go out west. I was looking at a statistic last week, and it was alarming how many teams have gone out there and lost, whether from the Eastern time zone or the Central time zone, because that's a trip. To their credit, they did go out a day early, and maybe that helped them a little bit get acclimated to Washington. It's a great setting out there at Puget Sound. But, Sayin settled down a little bit, and they started to kind of, impose their will in the second half. Bo Jackson was good again. So, it was kind of the game I think everybody expected. If you looked at the odds makers, and you do check that from time to time, it was like 8.5-point favorite, and it was going down a little bit. So they were just about spot on that. And Washington's a good football team, and that was their first road game of the season. So I expected that to be a scuffle a little bit.
Yeah, a lot of people had Ohio State on upset alert, and not just because of how talented Washington is, but because they got Ohio State at home. And in that first half, you were almost waiting for a moment for Washington to score and set that place on fire and take the lead. And then all of a sudden, maybe your back is against the wall there. But Washington, with the exception of going up 3-0, never did hold a lead.
Yeah, and a lot of that's credit to Ohio State's defense. But like you say, in an atmosphere like that, if you can get a break and, like you say, go up 7 points or so and get the crowd going, that changes everything. And they handled themselves in a really, really tough atmosphere. So credit to Ryan Day and his folks for that, because that was never going to be an easy game.
Third straight game that Bo Jackson's been their leading rusher. He's their leading rusher so far this season. I think at some point you're going to see him trot out there for the first snap. It's been C.J. Donaldson, and I was kind of shocked on Saturday when Donaldson came out there for that first drive. But Bo Jackson is the man. He's just a true freshman, so maybe they're easing him into it. But there's a lot of potential in that backfield as he starts to come along, and they're certainly going to need him on Saturday night at 7:30 against Minnesota. This is a 3-1 Minnesota squad that a lot of people probably aren't talking much about, but they're a talented group as well.
Yeah, they are. And back to Bo Jackson, if we see him in the spring play baseball, then we're all in trouble, right?
No kidding.
Then with the whole thing is complete. But the Gophers are always good, man. They're always physical. They usually don't just toss in their hat and say, "Here come the Buckeyes," but they are 23-point favorites. But they are 3-1, so that's a night game. So we'll see how that one goes. But I don't expect Ohio State to have as much trouble with Minnesota as they did at Washington. I wouldn't think.
You wouldn't think, but you just never know. It is Big Ten football.
Sure don't.
We will see.
Nope.
Let's keep it in the Buckeye State then, or the Bobcat State, as some would say. Ohio beats Bowling Green 35-20. The Bobcats never trailed, but that was really not a two-score game. They had to put them away late. Bowling Green had it to within 8 there in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, and, you get into conference play, that in the MAC, and whether it's the Sun Belt or the Big Ten or the Big 12, it's people start to know what you do. They know what your tendencies are, and they're going to be tough games. And Parker Navarro was his normal Parker Navarro self, 2 touchdowns passing, had a couple of touchdowns rushing, and Bangura goes over 100 yards, which seemingly is a weekly occurrence with him. So, I thought that would be a little bit of a test, but Ohio still, to me, looks to be the cream of the crop in the MAC, and we'll see if they can keep going. But there's no reason to think that they're going to, they may lose one here or there down the road, but they're playing some really good football.
I think the defense looked a little better than it did against Gardner-Webb, and they were able to pick off Drew Pine 3 times. I totally forgot that Drew Pine was Bowling Green's starting quarterback, the Notre Dame transfer from a few years back.
That's right. Notre Dame's had some quarterbacks that transferred out of there, and his name was prominent in South Bend, and now, it just shows you how that portal works and where you see these guys end up, and you go, wait a minute, I remember his name.
It's hard to keep up with, man.
Yeah, it is. You need a chart,
you really do,
like a magnetic chart,
or one of those crime scene investigators that has pins with rubber bands going from each thing,
or the outline, outline of the dead bodies on the ground.
Whatever it takes to keep up with the portal, man.
It's really hard. You're right.
Ohio goes to Ball State this Saturday. Ball State's 1-3. The Bobcats are favored by 2 touchdowns. Like you said, if they are what we think they are, and that's a MAC title favorite, they should be able to handle business out there. Ball State with a new head coach this year. You remember they fired their head coach last year in the middle of the season, like 2 weeks before they played Ohio. So some growing pains there, but Ohio should be able to take care of business.
I would think so. Going to a game in Muncie when it's not in November, that's kind of a cool setting. I've enjoyed going over there a couple of times over the past several years, and it is a great atmosphere. But I think Ohio is just better on both sides of the ball. And like you say, with the new coach Mike Uremovich, it's a little bit of a learning on the job kind of thing for him, and that's tough in the MAC, and especially tough when Ohio is coming to your place. So I would think Coach Smith will have them ready for that one.
Down in Columbia, South Carolina, the SEC woes continue for the Kentucky Wildcats. They get beat 35-13. I looked at both team stats individually and team-wise, and nothing really jumps out at you to think that South Carolina dominated the football game, but certainly on the scoreboard.
Yeah, Kentucky had the early lead, and then they come down. And what happens in a game like that is if you go up 1 score, which South Carolina did, then Boley throws a pick 6, and now you're up 2 scores. And that sort of just kind of steamrolls from there for the Gamecocks. And that's kind of been Kentucky's MO in SEC play lately. If they get down a little bit, they start to lose a little bit of confidence, and that's to be expected, especially when you're on the road. But you get the feeling that Coach Stoops is thinking, man, is Boley the guy? I mean, he's looking for answers, and unfortunately for him, he has to think of them really quickly because this week they go between the hedges. So there's no rest in the SEC. You know that. I mean, until you play that week where you're just playing FCS teams. But, man, Coach Stoops, they're on the gamut. After that, they welcome Texas comes to Lexington, and then Tennessee. So that's their next 3: Georgia, Texas, and Tennessee.
Yeah, of course, you imagine Georgia's probably not feeling too good about themselves, a little angry. They just got beat by Alabama there at home, and they're favored by 20 points, so maybe they feel like they can take out a little bit of their emotions on the Wildcats.
I think they'll be in a really bad mood, and for Mark Stoops, his guys should be in a bad mood. I mean, I don't think it's a bad Kentucky team. They're just not making the plays in these games against really quality competition you have to make to win.
Yeah, I think that running back, Seth McGowan, every time I look, he's up over 100 yards. Yeah. So you have some things that you do well seemingly against anybody that you want, but you got to be able to put it all together at some point and win maybe a few games that you're not supposed to.
Yeah, and that's what it takes. You got to win one and get everybody feeling good about themselves. Just because in that league, one mistake, especially on the road, it's exacerbated. Just like it was at Georgia after that pick 6, it's 28-10, I think, and then that was about the ball game for them.
Keith, what do you do on Marshall bye weeks? What do you do?
Well, I do them on even on the days they're playing. I'm watching a lot of college football.
Yeah, there's still games to watch.
I mean, they're everywhere you look. It's so much fun. I just enjoy watching teams you don't get to see very often, and then also the teams that everybody's watching. But if you can and you got time and you don't have to work, then you're just
hanging out.
Switching. You got your phone. I mean, you got 5 screens, however many multi-view games you can watch, and it's a blast.
My hope. As right now, people are watching us on Wednesday night. The Reds are playing right now.
That's right.
So who knows how the series is going. My hope is that they come out of L.A. and advance to the NLDS. We'll have Game 1 in Philadelphia on Saturday. People can watch that.
Oh, how about that?
So someone's probably laughing right now because our people know what the score of the Reds game is, and they know what the series is at right now. We don't.
Hey, listen,
as we record it.
Listen, I give all credit to Tito Francona as we switched from football to baseball. Got them to the playoffs. How many times did everybody count them out, including me and you?
2 weeks ago, I was done with them.
Oh, I mean, about a month and a half ago, everybody said, "Oh, they're done." So for them to keep coming back from the dead, if you will, and to make the playoffs, it's good. It's good for Francona. It's good for Reds fans. They've been hankering for a chance to get back in the playoffs. And they got Hunter Green on the mound in game 1. Well, that's already going to be decided, but we'll see what happens in game 2. And I guess if game 3 happens, it's Shohei Ohtani
and Andrew Abbott. I think the Reds are hanging on to Abbott for game 3. Not so sure about that. He's an all-star pitcher for you. You would kind of want to make sure you get him.
Yeah.
But I say let's not see him at all until we play Philadelphia.
Okay.
If you ask me.
Well, I see what you're saying.
But, who knows?
Playoff baseball's great, and especially in Chavez Ravine, it's going to be fun to watch. And I'm looking forward to it. And the Reds can play, they can play fast and loose. What do they got to lose, right?
Nothing.
They're not supposed to win. They're not supposed to be there, right? Go have fun and see if you can upset the mighty Dodgers.
I've been telling people we don't have to rewrite history and say that, the Reds have figured it out all of a sudden. They're still the same, a little bit better than 500 ball club, but it doesn't matter now. You're in.
Sometimes up, sometimes down, but that's baseball, man.
Go scratch some runs across and win a few games.
Everybody thinks too much, man. Just go out and play the game. And
you can't do that in baseball or golf.
No, man. You think too much and everything's going the wrong way. So just go out and have some fun and, string a few hits together. You never know.
And this is, since it is WSAZ Sports Plus and we've talked football, baseball now, Ryder Cup thoughts?
Oh, wow. Unbelievable comeback by the Americans on Sunday. Just too big of a hole. You cannot give up. What they came into that final day down so far that mathematically it was almost impossible to win. Europeans, man, they're for whatever reason they're better in those early foursome games and the alternate shot format, and they seem to be more team oriented. Not to disparage any of the Americans because we have great talent, but they just seem to do it as a team better. And now they go to Ireland in 2 years, and then they've kind of been dominant over on to win a Ryder Cup on the other country's soil or the other continent, if you will, is one of the hardest things to do in golf, and they pulled it off. So I give them credit.
And at least for Rory, they'll be a little nicer to him over there in Ireland, won't they?
He'll have a lot more friendly reception, and then the Americans will get the other side of it. I love the Ryder Cup, though.
It's awesome.
Everybody expected that thing to be done by noon or 1 o'clock. And I watched all the way through till 5:30, switching back and forth from the NFL. So it was a great show. It always is.
Anything else, Keith, as we let you go? And if not, we'll see you next week for sure.
I think we're getting close to basketball season coming up.
We are.
Talk about that, too, down the road here.
Yeah, we're going to have to get some herd basketballers on this program, whatever we can do to start gearing up for that because it's coming.
I think, it's almost October. They're going to be doing these they're going to do some practices and outdoor exhibitions and all kinds of stuff. So it'll be fun when basketball overlaps with football. Always is.
Well, Keith, certainly appreciate you joining us up here.
Thank you, Joseph.
We've got camera 4 up there right now. That's a good one for us.
See you guys.
All right, everybody. That was WSAZ Sports Director Keith Morehouse talking college football. And, gosh, we talked Major League Baseball. We talked Ryder Cup. We talked all kinds of stuff up here on this episode. But I guess it is Sports Plus. It doesn't have to exclusively be football this time of year, even though that is mainly what we're talking about. We certainly appreciate Keith coming up here and talking about whatever I throw his way, because a lot of that was not scripted. So anyways, appreciate all of you for joining us. Remember, this program's at 9 o'clock now. So Wednesdays at 9, we do the college football show. Tuesdays at 9, we do the high school football show. In the meantime, go to our social media pages, WSAZ Sports Plus on pretty much everything. That's Twitter, that's TikTok, that's Instagram. You can follow Keith Morehouse on Twitter at Keith Morehouse. You can follow me on Twitter at JPaytonTV. You can also follow me on Facebook. It's just my name with WSAZ at the end of it. And I will say the WSAZ Sports Plus TikTok is popping off. We're upwards of 1,100 followers now. Pretty cool. Glad people are consuming the content any way that they can. So hope you guys are having fun listening to our program. We're having fun talking about all this stuff. So for now, we will see you same time, same place next week, next Wednesday at 9 o'clock. This has been WSAZ Sports Plus.